Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Shaun, and today I got a quick movie review. Today we're going to be talking about the just released new film in the Predator franchise. We're going to be talking about 2022's Prey. The film is directed by Dan Trachtenberg, written by Patrick Azan, Dan Trachtenberg, and Jim Thomas. It stars Amber Midthunder, Dakota Beavers, Dan DeLagerio, Stormy Kipp, Julian Black Antelope, and others. The logline plot synopsis is the origin story of the Predator in the world of the Comanche Nation 300 years ago. Naru, a skilled female warrior, fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. So, before I get into this movie, I just want to say, kind of just put it out there, I'm a massive fan of the original Predator. So much so that I can't really be critical of the movie. At least I don't feel like I can. I think it's a nearly flawless action film.
She's built sweet. She got everything the Buckachon needs.
I think the pacing is incredible. I think the characters and the way they're kind of archetypal and presented is perfect.
Get that stinking shit out of my face.
Bunch of slap-jawed faggots around here. This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus. Just like me.
Yeah, strap this on your sore-ass plane.
I think everything is pitched great. I think the action is fantastic. The set pieces are amongst my favorite for this kind of genre. So, but I don't feel
one ugly motherfucker
like that about the entire franchise. In fact, I would say Predator is kind of on an island on its own, and the other ones, even the ones that I like, Predator 2 and Predators, are kind of off in the genre. They feel more specific, like just kind of generic action sci-fi stuff. They're not as memorable. They're not. I mean, I've seen Predator 2 100 times in my life, and I swear to God, I can never remember the fucking plot of that movie. Like, other than just the things that happen, I can't ever remember what motivates anything or who the characters are. There's nothing super memorable about them, which stands in stark contrast to the original, because even the guys you only spend 15, 20 minutes with, like, you know who they are. They are so clearly etched in your mind, even from just, like, the opening moments of the movie. So coming to this, I didn't have super high expectations or super low expectations. I know who Dan Trachtenberg is. He's done mostly television. He's done one movie, 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was a movie that he directed that was retrofitted into a Cloverfield film after the fact years ago, which stars like John Goodman and a few other people. I can't remember their names off the top of my head. 2 other people. And it's a fine movie. It's a solid, like, little chamber piece thriller. So I knew that he was competent. I knew that he was actually pretty good with characters. So it made me curious. It didn't leave like I wasn't concerned. I wasn't like, oh man, this guy's fucking directing it. Because honestly, at this point in this franchise history, it's like, I guess we should try kind of anything. And I feel like just the basic premise, going 300 years in the past, Comanche Nation, it's this back to basics, strip everything down. I thought that was a really good approach. I think that you could make a really fucking kick-ass cool Predator movie. So, coming to Prey. I actually watched it almost twice. I watched the first hour twice because I put it on late that Friday night, ended up falling asleep. And when I fell asleep that night, I wasn't loving the movie. I felt like I was waiting for it to start. It's feels like a very unnecessarily slow burn in the early goings of the film, and it also does this thing where it shows you the Predator's POV for some reason, which you think would come into play at some point, but never really does in any substantial way. So there's just a lot of time getting to know the characters and spending time with this young girl, Naru, and her wanting to prove herself to her tribe, to her brothers, that she can be just as kick-ass as the boys. In fact, she might even be a little bit better suited to be a true hunter, a master hunter, than the rest of them, because she understands the value of vulnerability and patience, which is her big arc. That's her big arc in the movie. Coming into her own. She's not quite like, people might describe a lot of times these characters, oh, they're Mary Sue's, etc. Like, not quite. She is probably a little bit more capable than you might normally find in a young girl that looks like she's 90 pounds soaking wet. I mean, she like has a fist fight with like 4 Comanche guys, young Comanche guys, but 4 Comanche dudes nonetheless, and she holds her own pretty well, which seems like a completely unnecessary thing, and also just kind of undercuts the idea that she is incredibly vulnerable. That's like what makes so many female action heroes special and unique. And if you look back at like Ripley or Sarah Connor, is that they're not like badass commando chicks. At least that's not how they started, right? At least there's a couple movies in those franchises before they become cartoon characters. And this, it kind of splits the difference a little bit. But I just couldn't, you never get a sense of her life, her internal life outside of just wanting to be a hunter and wanting to be accepted. And that's kind of her whole thing in the beginning. And then the movie goes on it feels like it's like 45 minutes before there's really any impactful interaction, any meaningful interaction between the Predator and the Comanche people. And they kind of set it up like you think they're going to do something more akin to the original, where you have like a group of people and maybe they're out on a hunt and they start getting picked off. And it kind of does a version of that. It does like a truncated version of that before it just kind of making it about her and her brother and then eventually just her. And then there's a few callbacks to the original movie, which were very cringe for a lack of a better way to put it. She even utters the line, "Do it. Do it."
Come on. Do it. Come on, do it.
But she does it in a complete flat monotone voice, because one of the biggest problems with this movie and why it was so hard, I think, to connect with the characters or what's going on is the performances are almost uniformly bad.
Where are you going?
I saw it.
Saw what?
I saw what left those tracks.
They're almost all uniformly bad. Now, apparently the original intention of this movie was to film it in the native language, in the Comanche, whatever you would call it, Comanchese. Not sure what you'd call it, but it was supposed to be filmed in that native language. And then obviously the studio was like, well, let's not be crazy. So they did provide a full Comanche dub of the film, which I did not watch. Maybe I would think better of the performances had I watched it. I know it's the same actors coming in to kind of dub over their English dialogue. So maybe there would be something to that. Maybe it would add to the verisimilitude of everything. Maybe it would work better. But as it stands right now, if you listen to this in English, they're fucking bad.
This morning in the sky, I saw a sign. The Thunderbird. I've been practicing. It's time. I'm ready for my katamia.
You really think you're ready? You want to hunt something that's hunting you.
They're bad actors. All of them, except for the French dudes. There's some French guys that show up because, every Predator movie now is somehow about colonialism and the evils of colonialism. And there's an article. There was an article, I haven't read it, but the guy makes the case. I read like part of it. I read the opening paragraph. The guy wants to make the case that Predator was always about colonialism because, we like to be able to take things in the past and just project whatever the fuck we want onto them. So that was the thing. That was interesting. In fact, I would say, well, I don't know if it was always about colonialism. I think you could say at least the first one, maybe it was about like, American intervention. You could maybe say that. But anyways, beyond that, so that stuff was really bad, and it kind of makes that first 45 minutes like really drag because you understand the dynamics of what's going on like within 15 minutes, and then they kind of just tell you the same thing over and over again, and trying to kind of basically do setups. That's what it's for. It's trying to do setups for the last act, so they want to introduce like some tricks that she knows and some traps, and they just take a very long time to get there. Because with that character, when you have a young person like that, I guess you do have to make some sort of effort to explain why they're as capable as they are. Maybe, kind of. Although it doesn't really so much as explain it as just being like, she thought it would be cool to put an axe on a fucking rope and throw it. Like shit like that. And then there's other things that don't even come into play at all. Like there's, like I said, that they're dealing with, people coming to the shores of the United States, or before it was the United States, and trashing the land and raping and pillaging everything, which they don't get into to any great degree. I thought, spoiler alert here. I don't want to spoil the movie too much, but this doesn't happen, so I guess it's not really a spoiler. I thought, and I was going to laugh, because it really kind of made me laugh. I was like, oh, is she going to team up with the Predator to fight the colonialists, to fight the French people that are there? Which ends up being kind of like half true, half not true. They ended up fucking themselves over, but anyways. And also just the basic action stuff. Like, people were praising this movie. I feel like I watched a different movie than most people. So you may watch this and really like it, but people were praising, like, oh, it's like, it's like the Predator movie that would have been made in the wake of John Wick. It's the set pieces are tight and exciting, and there's so much technical craft at play, and it's really just a wham bam and super violent. And I did not get that sense at all. In fact, I thought most of the set pieces were kind of boring, not super exciting, and also very muddy most of the time. And a lot of that had to do with like hiding the Predator himself, hiding that character, because for the most part, it seems to be a CGI creature. There's not a lot of practical effects when it comes to the Predator, which I found so frustrating, especially if your claim is to like, oh, we want to do kind of this back to basics Predator stuff. They did not. They did not in terms of execution, in terms of like materially, like how they made the movie. It's just like this very distracting CGI character, because it's a lower budget movie, which makes sense. Makes sense for what it is. It's a lower budgeted movie, and for whatever reason, putting a dude in a suit, that's asking a lot. Because if you put a guy in a suit, you're gonna have to do things like lighting. You're gonna actually have to make plans for that. You're gonna have to have people out in a real practical fucking location. And man, I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed. I thought the trailer looked okay. Like I said, I was kind of cautiously optimistic about it, and I was just so wildly disappointed in it. And I don't understand. I don't understand what people are saying about it. I really feel like I watched a different movie. I thought it was laughably bad. I don't even know. It's already kind of leaving my mind. It's so forgettable. I watched it like a few days ago. And like I said, I watched the first hour twice. Which just confirmed most of my suspicions, because I was just like, wow, man, I don't know. It's not really grabbing me. It's not very good. But maybe I was tired. I ended up falling asleep about an hour in. So maybe that's what it was. So I'll start it over and I'll watch it again. Didn't help anything. Did not fix the problems that the movie had. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I guess the bar is just so fucking low these days. Not just for Predator movies, but for just movies in general. Maybe especially like kind of this B tier action stuff that people just are very accepting of anything. It's just like, it's barely above competent. So, it's like the thing about the movie. It's not like a train wreck, and you can understand like what it's trying to get at in terms of themes and subtext. I just don't think it does a very good job of executing on any of that stuff, or making you care whatsoever, making you care at fucking all. In fact, I would say that they're constantly undermining the threat that the Predator poses by not really like allowing him to be that vicious. And it doesn't help when you have like bad guys. So you have a third group. You have the Predator, you have the Comanche, then you have these French settlers. They're the bad guys, and most of the time, most of the people that get killed by the Predator are these French settler dudes. And they get the most brutal deaths. But even then, it just looked really corny, looked bad, looked muddy, especially that scene. There's a scene early on where he fights some of the Comanches, and there's some fun moments in there, I will say. Like, it's about like 45 minutes in. It's like the first big meet-up, first big altercation. And there's some fun stuff in there. There's a few moments here, like in isolation, in a vacuum, that you could watch and be like, oh, that was kind of cool. But as a whole, all put together, wildly disappointing. Everyone is lying to you except for me. Do not trust any of these people. They're liars. I don't know what fucking movie they watched. I don't know. I've never been so perplexed at a movie I watched and then watching like general consensus. And the people that liked it are generally oftentimes people that I agree with on things, even if I'm being generous. Like, I don't know how, like, what the charitable read on this movie is for everybody to be jumping out of their seats saying, like, this is it, man. They fucking killed it. They should have released this in theaters. This is the perfect end of summer movie. Not in my opinion. Not in my humble opinion. Anyways, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. There's a bunch of links in the description. Go check that stuff out. If you'd like to see what we're up to, we do a lot of stuff over on Honesty and D-Live. Mondays, Friday nights, we do a live show called Nightcap. Come join us over there. We look at all sorts of weird subcultures and internet oddities and news and blah, blah, blah. We just have a fun time over there. Talk about the world. Talk about our lives. Anyways, don't watch Prey. Goodbye. Goodbye.